So this is the LG G8, one of the two flagship phones that the South Korean tech brand will release in 2019. So the phone looks very similar to previous LG devices, and I think at first some consumers may be taken aback by the relatively giant notch, especially since in 2019 we have seen rival smartphones from Samsung and Huawei release phones that either have a much smaller notch or a new hole punch display. And objectively speaking, both of these designs are preferred over the LG G8's larger notch because it takes up less screen space. It looks a little bit more elegant. But LG actually has a good reason for going with the larger notch. That's because inside this notch isn't just that selfie camera, but also a TOF sensor and an infrared camera. So TOF stands for time of flight. It's basically a 3D scanner. So what this TOF sensor will do is it can map your face in 3D. So that means yes, the LG G8 offers real 3D face unlock on par with something like what Apple offers with the iPhones. With the Samsung Galaxy S10 or the Huawei P30 Pro, you are able to activate face unlock if you want, but it will be a more simplistic 2D face unlock that is nowhere near as secure. So even though LG's phone has a larger notch, there's a practical reason for it that some users might prefer. So everything else about the LG G8's design is really elegant. So for example, you look at the back of the phone, there is no camera bump whatsoever. That's because LG managed to put the glass plate on the back over the camera module. So when you run your finger through the camera module, you don't feel anything. It's completely smooth. Other than this fingerprint sensor, the entire back of the phone feels like it's one piece, it's smooth. Now this smoothness carries over to the front of the phone too, because LG has removed the earpiece that traditionally sits at the top of the bezel right here. So now instead, when you make phone calls, sound will vibrate through the screen to your ears. Likewise, when you're watching videos, you will have sound coming out of the bottom fine speaker grill and also out of this part of the screen. So you're getting effectively a stereo speaker. And the sound, it's very full and very lively. And of course this OLED panel looks absolutely gorgeous too. Blacks are very deep, colors are very vibrant, and you have a screen with really good viewing angles. So now moving on to the camera, you have a 12 megapixel main lens right here with an f1.5 aperture and then a secondary wide angle lens at 16 megapixels. So this camera hardware is basically unchanged from the LG V40, so you can expect camera performance that's very similar. And overall, I would say LG G8's camera, it's really good, but not the best. If you take photos during the day, you're going to get something really vibrant, really punchy, and really good bokeh images too. But when you move to low light situations, for the most part, you're still going to get a very lively, impressive image, but the camera tends to overexpose lights, and something like a Huawei P30 Pro is just completely superior in low light photography. So the G8's camera isn't quite the best on the market, but it's still a top-notch camera. So video capabilities has been a strong point of LG devices for a few generations now, and that is still true here. So this footage you see here is shot at 4K resolution at 30 frames per second. You notice stabilization is very strong. This is probably the best video camera in all of Android phones right now. Otherwise, the G8 has all the top-notch specs and features that you'd expect from a flagship in 2019. You have a Snapdragon 855, Android 9.0, wireless charging, water resistance. The battery has been increased too to 3,500 mAh. So that's not the largest battery around. Something like a Huawei device will still have way better battery life. But now the LG G8 can almost last the full day, which is something that previous LG devices cannot do. So of course, being an LG device, there's always that one sort of gimmicky, sort of weird feature. And with this year's LG G8, it's the ability to scan your palm. So this TOF camera that I mentioned earlier doesn't just scan your face. It can also scan the veins inside your palm. According to LG, the veins inside our palms are just as unique as our fingerprint. So that means it is just as secure to authenticate your identification. So it's pretty easy to do. All you have to do is hover your palm over the phone, and then it will scan my palm and unlock right there. Now on top of that, you can also use your palm to activate certain actions with the LG G8. So you see, I was able to launch Instagram right now without touching the display. So you can also control video playback too. You can pause or play video or music or other media without touching the screen. Now this sounds really gimmicky, but I can see some real world usage for this. So for example, if you're cooking or you're eating a hamburger and your hand's really greasy, you want to play a video on your phone but you don't want to touch it and get it all greasy, then you can use air gestures via your palm. So this is something that's really funky, but I think it could be useful. And that about sums up the LG G8. It's a quirky device that if you put it side by side with another phone, I believe most people will say that the phone on my right looks a little bit sleeker and sexier and prettier. But once you use the LG G8 a little bit, you'll find that it's very practical and it offers almost the exact same thing as what Apple or Samsung or Huawei offers. Now, LG has not announced official pricing of the LG G8, but I've been told that it will definitely sell for cheaper than what Samsung or Huawei are charging for the Galaxy S10 and the Huawei P30 Pro. So I would expect this phone to be around the $800 price range. And I think at that price, it's a worthy consideration if you want flagship performance but you don't want to quite pay $1,000.